Terrorism in Times Square. Fox News is reporting tonight that the terrorist suspect was upset over drone attacks in Pakistan. Now what do we do?
Well, first of all, I don't want to sound like an old-fashioned American, but I don't actually care why the terrorist was upset. He's a terrorist. He was trying to kill hundreds of innocent people. I'm tired of the psychoanalytic approach to foreign policy. When somebody's your enemy, you know how to deal with enemies. He's not a candidate for therapy. We don't need to put him in with the psychiatrist who killed people at Fort Hood. I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying the whole notion.
Just so you know, I was not suggesting we coddle him because he was upset. Please don't get that. I'm just wondering how do we figure out, you know, who's here in this country who's got motives, no matter how horrible the motives are, because they can kill.
And by the way, that can include native-born Americans. I mean, the fact is, since we're not even allowed to describe the fact that he's Muslim, we're not allowed to talk about any religious motivation, we're not allowed to have an honest, candid discussion of the problem, how could you possibly have any way of getting at the root of this thing? This is an administration dedicated to avoiding reality and to living out a fantasy foreign policy, even at the risk of American lives. But there's a more fundamental fact here. Michael Scheuer, who was the head of the bin Laden task force at the CIA in the late 90s and twice found bin Laden and was in a position to kill him but was blocked by the Clinton administration, Scheuer wrote recently a very sobering report, and he said, remember, nobody stopped the bomber in the airplane in Detroit except that the bomb didn't go off. The security of the system failed. Nobody stopped the bomber in Times Square except that the bomb didn't go off. The system failed. And I think we need to understand, after almost 10 years of work, after over 30 years, if you go back to the Iranian seizure of our embassy in 1979, the fact is we today do not understand these enemies. We are not ahead of them. We have been lucky, and that's dangerous. You cannot build your national security system on an assumption that your opponents are incompetent. And I think we ought to have a much more thorough debate about how to overhaul our security system. Here's a guy who barely becomes an American citizen and promptly goes off to Pakistan, leaves his family in Pakistan, goes to a terrorist training camp, and we know nothing about it, and Pakistan's supposedly our ally. I mean, I think there are a lot of fundamental questions about this case, and I'm deeply troubled. If you'll notice, the first reaction was that it's not a terrorist attack. It's a lone individual, exactly like happened in Detroit, exactly what happened at Fort Hood, exactly what happened in Arkansas. I mean, the desperation of the American elite to avoid the reality that we are at war with a religiously inspired movement of fanatics who are now connected by the internet and who now communicate with each other across national boundaries. This is really dangerous to our survival, to have an elite this determined to avoid reality.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you.